Hey, what is up, everybody? Ross Cessna from Spiritual Phoenix Studios here. We also have Renji with us. Renji is not liking being on the camera this morning. I'm going to do a free tarot reading for you real quick. This is the Knights Templar spread. Cool little facts for you are Friday the 13th is considered an inauspicious day because the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Jacques de Molay, along with hundreds of Templars, was arrested and imprisoned on Friday, October the 13th, 1307. Obviously, it's not Friday the 13th, but it is January 13th, which is why that topic comes up. Here's a couple more little tidbits. Tarot Knights are often messengers bearing news. Read the energy of your situation by paying close attention to the speed of the Knight's horses. A fast horse equals a speedy resolution, while a slow horse means more time will elapse. The Knights Templar were sanctioned by Pope Honorius today in 1128. The Templars grew in size and popularity, gaining so much wealth and influence that by 1307, King Philip of France and Pope Clement V conspired to bring them down. Tortured into false confessions and convicted of heresy, sacrilege, and Satanism, many burned at the stake. And this is kind of the summation of this spread. Knights swear with oaths, vows, and codes of conduct, and these pledges color future actions. The questions in this spread are based on the core tenets of knighthood. And while the actual spread itself is 8 cards, and it wants it in a cross, I'm not going to do all 8 cards, and I can't fit the cross on my camera the way that it is, but let's look at it, right? Why should you release material concerns is the first question. We have 10 of Wands in the reverse. The 10s are about completion. Wands are about desires. And the way that I would take this card is, first off, your material concerns will never be fulfilled because, like, 10s are about completions. This is in reverse. Additionally, this card can be about, burdens or responsibility, and at times, like, even atonement or kind of when it's reversed, it's like a deeper process of that, right? Like, your desires are the things that cause you to suffer, and it doesn't mean that you can't want things. It means you have to change your relation to them, right? And honestly, when we release material concerns, for the most part, the universe has a funny way of providing for us, but when we're in this sense of scarcity mindset, it makes it harder to get those things, and not in like a bullshit law of attraction kind of way, but in like a the deeper truth that law of attraction is based on, right? Next one is, how can you correct injustice? It's the Temperance card in reverse. Temperance is about moderation and balance, and honestly what this is saying is sometimes our solution is actually the problem, and sometimes in trying to correct injustice, we actually tip the scales out of balance even further. Justice is literally baked into the universe. There's no need to actually go out and take things in our own hands. That shows a lack of faith and a lack of understanding. Now, with that said, how do I want to word this appropriately? There obviously are situations where we have to stand up and confront challenges, but it's not so more in punishing what has happened. It's acting towards what we would like to see in the world. And so this is, instead of maybe protesting a cause or something like that, actively working on resolving the problem. There's this whole saying, what you resist persists, right? And the very resistance is giving energy to what you don't want versus pivoting, sucking that energy of resistance away and then channeling it somewhere else. Additionally, resistance makes things stronger too. So just keep that in mind. So, what tyranny in your life goes unchecked? It's 6 of Cups, and this is kind of interesting because it can be about innocence and nostalgia. The tyranny that goes unchecked is this sense of, how do I want to put this? Not necessarily having the proper perspective on your life. Sometimes you're so attached to how things were that you're not current with how things are. And you also associate yourself with maybe a more pristine state. Oh, I used to be this, now I'm this. So it's this reflection that doesn't create harmony. And one of the things that I've heard that I think is super helpful is depression is living in the past, anxiety is living in the future. And I think that that's incredibly important. And like the way that we are oriented by society and stuff like that kind of leaves us in that space where there's not a lot of time for now. It's always what has happened or what will happen, but we're never focusing on what is happening. We are the biggest tyrants of our own lives, and the thing between our ears is our master if we let it. And there's a whole saying that a mind is a horrible master but a beautiful servant. This is largely what the whole process of metaphysics and spirituality is actually about reclaiming your mind. But there's so many spiritual traps along the way, it's easy to get lost, right? So what does it mean to live honorably is the next one, and it's 3 of Swords in reverse. And I'm going to take this a little bit differently than normal. 3s are about communication, Swords are about the mind. This is 3 of Swords in reverse is generally about like disorder and hurt and like heart. It's like an amped up, dialed up version of 3 of Swords, right? But the way that I would actually take this in terms of what does it mean to live honorably, it means not being afraid to ask yourself the hard questions and not being afraid to give yourself the truthful answers, even though it's uncomfortable. And learning to be honorable and to maintain your integrity is actually going to create a lot of ripples in your life, because there's so many opportunities in society now to sell ourselves out. And when you begin to try to maintain personal integrity on a real way, and you have a level of self-awareness where you're willing to like double check your stuff, because all of us are like deceptive to ourselves at times. It's not a pleasant process at first, and it really, really stings. But at the same time, that's kind of like tearing down this wall that we've built around our heart. And it's kind of tearing down this wall that we built around seeing ourselves honestly. And this is one of the things that's interesting, right? So here we're telling ourselves lies about like the past and what might happen in the future. And in the present moment, we don't see ourselves clearly because of that. But when we are able to see ourselves clearly in the present moment and kind of go through that discomfort, we stop focusing so much on the other and we learn to be in the now. But the transition from how society structured us to then is not necessarily pleasant. Last one, what does it mean to be noble? This one is super funny because it kind of builds upon everything that we've talked about. 10s are about completion, Swords are about the mind. This is like being over yourself. 10 of Swords is honestly about like defeat, loss, and crisis. What does it mean to be noble? It means to shed your old way of being and understand that you can kind of hold yourself to higher standards than what you are, and not in a self-destructive or difficult way, but in a sense of, let me explain it to you this way. There's 2 types of motivation. There's extrinsic motivation, which is the motivation to appear good to others, to acquire things, to have like basic human needs met, right? And that's kind of like the first 4 levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But then there's also intrinsic motivation, and intrinsic motivation is like desiring personal growth, development, expansion, like holding yourself to that higher standard, right? And that process for many, many people is a result of like the death in the 10 of Swords, like the defeat of 10 of Swords. And for people in 12-step programs, it's like the rock bottom or the moment of clarity. But it's this really, really painful situation that causes us to change. And 10 of Swords is actually kind of called like the butterfly card, or maybe I should say I call it that, and I've heard a couple other people call it that, because it's this painful situation that shifts our mind that allows us to transform. That's kind of what being noble is like understanding how much our own actions have created many of the problems that we have, right? The only thing you really have control over is your mind. And a lot of us give that up. This is kind of letting go of that and reclaiming control. That's what it means to be noble. And it kind of goes into the whole myth of Prometheus or Sisyphus, and you can look those up independently of this. I'm going to do one more thing before we shut this down, and this is just going to be kind of like the quintessence card, right? So we have 10 plus 14 is 24, 24 plus 6 is 30, 30 plus 3 is 33, 3 plus 10 is 43, 4 plus 3 is 7, 7 is the Chariot card. Self-control and willpower is kind of the overarching theme of all of this. Why should you release material concerns? For self-control and willpower. How can you correct injustice? Self-control and willpower and directing it in the appropriate direction. What tyranny in your life goes unchecked? Self-control and willpower to direct your future. What does it mean to live honorably? Self-control and willpower. What does it mean to be noble? Self-control and willpower. Like, see how that works? Like, quintessence cards are badass because if you are coming at them from the right space, it's going to line up like that where it makes sense in everything. Anyhow, thanks so much for checking this out. I hope that it was helpful. If it is, leave a comment, drop a like. And if you're interested, I also have a free weekly meditation meetup. The link will be in the description below. And I'd love to see you there sometime. 100% free, all online, and open to anybody. So talk to you soon. Have a blessed day. Peace.